Let me just start out by saying that the first day I opened the first page of this book was the first day that I lost my sanity and went insane. In other words, I realized that I found one of my favorite books of all time, and now I'm finally doing a review of it. So if you know me for even like 5 minutes, I bet you can pretty much pick up that I'm a big fan of Percy Jackson. If books ever come up in the conversation, I'm always about Percy Jackson, and this is my favorite book series that you just need to read it. So I've lost track of how many times that I have read this series and reread it, so in other words, I don't know how many times I've read this book or what time that this is. So I've just reread it for about the billionth time, and I can finally do a review on it and do a review on each one of these lovely books. First off, I just want to say, me and my friend made this like Percy Jackson shirt when we were in 6th grade, so I felt like wearing it because it brings back sweet memories. Okay, before I get into the discussion and the spoilers, I just want to talk about, the book and convince you to read it because you really should if you haven't read it yet. So a quick synopsis: you meet this boy, Percy Jackson. He's 12 years old, and he's a troubled kid. He's had to move around from several different schools because he gets into some shenanigans and usually ends up getting expelled. What we soon figure out is that he's the demigod son of a Greek god. So in other words, Greek mythology is real in modern day, and they're kind of just like going around like normal people, except, they're gods. And they're having children, and their children are demigods, and it's pointed out in some of the books that some of the children are actually like famous figures, like George Washington is the son of Athena and stuff like that. Anyways, after monsters start attacking Percy, he ends up getting to Camp Half-Blood, which is kind of like the safe haven for Greek heroes of today. He finds out that Greek mythology is real, finds out who his godly parent is, and basically he starts training to become a hero and defend himself from monsters. Now in this book, The Lightning Thief, Zeus's Master Bolt has been stolen, and Percy is the prime suspect, even though he has no clue. He did just barely learn that Greek mythology is real, and he's already ticked off at a lot of these gods. So Percy has to go on a quest with his satyr friend Grover and another demigod, Annabeth, to find it and stop a war between the gods. Now as you go on throughout the book, you also find sort of like snippets to find out that there's actually a bigger prophecy about Percy, and that there might actually be a greater evil force that is lurking in the background. So yeah, basically that is the synopsis of The Lightning Thief. Kind of a little tiny snippet into what's coming into the future for the rest of the series. So first off, 12 years old. I know it's kind of weird. I first read this series when I was, 10 or 11, so 12 wasn't too bad for me reading it then, and going back, it's nostalgic, but I think if I read this 16 as I am now, or however older that I get, I would still really enjoy reading from Percy, because he's just a sassy little 12-year-old, and, he talks like a 12-year-old, he's, like, not like, oh, the Pythagorean theorem is this, but at the same time, he's not stupid. I mean, 12-year-olds aren't stupid, they're just kind of a little naive, I guess. But Percy is just a great protagonist, and one of the things that helps with this is the writing style that Rick Riordan has in all of his books, really. Percy has a very defiant voice. It's a strong voice, and you hear it from the first couple sentences. You're not hearing Rick Riordan write Percy's story, you're hearing Percy tell his story like he's a friend sitting down and telling you what's happened to him over the past couple years. But going back to the writing style, I also love Rick Riordan's ability to pace his stories perfectly. Like, the pacing was really, really fast, but at the same time it didn't feel like it was just bang, bang all over the place and just constantly, like, throwing things out there for the sake of kids wanting action. The action had a reason to be there, and when there wasn't action, the story was still interesting. When he had to explain, things about Greek mythology, it wasn't boring, and it didn't take away from the story, and I really, really love that. I also like how Rick Riordan is a master at sprinkling in humor. I really love his little jokes that he puts in there, and it makes you laugh. But it also can be very serious, and sometimes when you flip-flop between those two emotions, it can feel kind of scrambled and a little weird, but somehow Rick Riordan manages to pull it off, and I applaud him for being able to do that, because it's not easy. And kind of going back to Percy, I love that he was dyslexic and ADHD, and he was also labeled as a troubled kid, because sometimes we don't really see that too often. And I enjoyed reading from his perspective because, you know, even though he's labeled as a troubled kid, he's not really a bad kid, really, and he's really, really kind, really loyal and sweet, and also really funny and sassy. And not only did Percy have substance, but all of the characters that Rick Riordan introduced to us had substance and were interesting to read about, and I really enjoyed that. Even the Greek mythology characters that we were kind of introduced to for just a little bit had like a personality, and to do that in just like one chapter is really, really impressive. So overall, enjoyment. I love this book, guys. I love this series so much, and I was happy that I was able to get to sit down and reread it because I just loved it so much. So obviously, 5 out of 5. So now if you haven't read the book, I'm going to just go in and discuss the story because I really, really did enjoy this book series, and I want to talk to you guys about it for people who have just read it or people who have read it a long time ago like me and just want to talk about it again. Alright, so at the beginning of the book, we basically start off with Percy getting attacked by his pre-algebra teacher, Miss Dodds. And I love how the book starts off right with the action. As I said before, like, I love the pacing, but I also love how this just, bam, starts right off, gets you really interested, and I remember reading this for the first time and not being able to put it down, and that's something I really appreciated in these books. And let's also talk about Gabe, because I really, really, really hate Smelly Gabe. He's just such a dickwad, and rereading these books as I'm older, I realized that he was actually abusive to Sally, and that is just... This is a kid's novel, and it was in there, but I think Rick Riordan knows that some kids at 12 are going through this, even younger. And let's talk about our first look at Camp Half-Blood. Camp Half-Blood is just an amazing, amazing camp, and I love reading from Percy's perspective about, you know, going to the Hermes cabin, feeling like he finally had, like, a real home, and that was really, really touching to see. And then let's talk about how kind of depressing it was when his father finally claimed him. I mean, that was exciting Poseidon, but at the same time, you know, big 3. But can we just describe how he felt alone, you know, in his own cabin? He just didn't really have anyone. And I felt really bad for him because he finally found, like, a place where he belonged, and then again, he felt like an outcast even in this place that he really, really loved. Then Percy gets this quest, and everyone kind of knows he took it to go find his mom, but he also has to help Zeus. Annabeth kind of like just tags along and is like, yeah, I'm getting out of this place, and thank you for showing up. I really, really liked Annabeth's character, and I love seeing her grow from this little tiny 12-year-old Annabeth. And seeing her grow up throughout the series was also really fun, but just seeing everyone at a young age, how they all started out, it's amazing. Percy then went on to slay Medusa, and then he defeated the Chimera, and he just went on to slay all of these monsters, escape all of these traps at only 12. What was I doing at 12? Reading these books, basically. I really like how Percy and Annabeth's relationship started off as kind of like bickering, because it's so cute. And you know, when you're going back and you're reading it, you're like, oh, you guys love each other, just admit it. Little Perciveth shipper here, but I love their relationship even when they were younger. I thought it was super adorable just knowing what was coming, and I think we all knew what was coming even if we hadn't read the rest of the series. I also really liked Percy and his mom's relationship because I think we miss a lot of the relationships between main characters and their parents, especially a good relationship with their parents. I mean, we also have Percy and Poseidon, but even that, you know, throughout the series kind of like develops into something even better. I mean, Poseidon interacts with Percy a lot more than some of the gods do. And it's kind of frustrating to see how the gods can't really interact with their children. That's just really frustrating for me. And I bet for the children as well. But, you know, usually in a lot of books, the parents end up being dead, so that's kind of like a downer. So we kind of miss out on that kind of relationship, and I really, really liked Percy and his mother's relationship. And I just loved seeing these gods in these monsters, like, in modern day, like the Chimera being a chihuahua, and these gods just, like, being regular people just walking down the street. I mean, I still can't get over how just laid back it all is, really. But yeah, overall, I wish I could review this as I read this for the first time, but that would be my little 12-year-old rambly mind, and I don't think you'd really enjoy that. But yeah, those are basically my main thoughts. Tell me your favorite parts of The Lightning Thief, because I really enjoyed it. And let's not include the movie, because I hated the movie. Let's just not talk about those movies. Oh god. So yeah, tell me your favorite parts, your favorite characters. Talk to me about Percy Jackson, because I completely love this series, and I hope that you decide to read it if you haven't already, and I hope that you really enjoyed it if you did read it. I am a diehard Percy Jackson fan, so sorry if you were looking for a little more critical review. There's really nothing to say that's negative about this series that I can think of. I hope you guys enjoyed, and as always, have a great day, read a great book, and I'll see you all later.